I'm Audrey Prosser, and I'm a proud member of WAVE. WAVE is very fortunate to have this guest. She was first elected to the State Assembly in 2004, and in 2008, she was selected by her peers, the biggest honor, to be the first African-American woman to be the Speaker of the California State Assembly. In 2016, she was elected to her 4th term as a U.S. Congresswoman. She serves on committees, including the Foreign Affairs Committee and the Judiciary Committee. She has a political action committee, Sea of Change. She doesn't just go to Washington and work. She brought several dozen volunteers to walk in Orange County last Saturday to canvass to get the vote out here in Orange County, so she's helping us out. During the time in Congress, she served on 21 various caucuses, including she's the founder and co-chair of the Foster Youth and serves on the LGBT Equality Caucus, and she is the 2nd vice chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. That's just to name a few. She has grace, brilliance, compassion, and grit. Please welcome Congresswoman Karen Bass.
Hello, Costa Mesa, Orange County, WAVE. I was explaining to a few folks that when I grew up, when we would drive from LA to San Diego, we would say we were going behind the orange curtain. But Orange County's changed. Orange County has changed. And it is very exciting to me to be here and to look out at this crowd. But even though it's my first time coming here, I have known about what's going on here. I've known about what's going on with WAVE. And I just have to tell you, even though, we've been on this emotional roller coaster now for, over a year when 45 got elected. But part of the emotional roller coaster, we hear the tweets, we hear his ridiculous insults and his lies, and you go down. But then I immediately pop right back up, because one thing about this time period is that he has brought us all together. He's brought us all together in opposition of him, but he's brought us together in ways that I haven't seen. And I've been an activist since I was a kid. And I can't remember a time when I have seen people come together across issues in the way that people have now. Like when he did the Muslim travel ban, I went to LAX, I was trying to get back to DC. I couldn't even get to United Airlines because there were thousands of people out there protesting, carrying homemade signs. And I know that most of them had never thought about protesting in favor of immigrant rights before. But he has offended us in every single category, whether you were talking about race, class, issue, gender, etc. But we have to take that madness and we have to turn it into the energy that is going to fuel that wave. Ted ran through the seats that we have been winning. We're winning across the country. We have a few more months to make it to November, but I'm convinced that this movement that has started is going to continue, because it's kind of the first time where people go out and protest and immediately link it to voting. How about those high school kids? How about those Parkland kids? What did they do? Right after they started their protests, one of the first things they did was linked up with young African-American kids in Chicago. They linked up with Black Lives Matter. They talked about how it wasn't just the mass shootings, it's the shootings that take place every day in a lot of communities. But they even linked it up to voting. You're talking about 16 and 18-year-olds that said, you know what? Some of us are going to be able to vote in November, but all of us are going to be able to vote in 2020. And that's what makes the change. So my good friend Ted mentioned that we have 23 seats that we need, and I'm hoping that in the next few months it'll be 22, because these guys who've been falling like flies, they've been resigning left and right. Well, one of them who said he was going to retire because of his own sexual harassment stuff, he decided the other day to resign. And so that's a seat in Pennsylvania. And so I'm hoping in another couple of months that we'll have 22 seats that we need. What did we do in Congress this week? I don't know if Ted mentioned it or not, but to have the Speaker of the House fire the chaplain? Go figure, he fired the chaplain because they didn't like the way he prayed. Because he prayed that the day that we voted for the crazy tax plan, that we would vote for something that was fair. That is what got him fired. So the crazier they get, the more organized we get. As Audrey mentioned, after he was elected, to me, I was depressed for a minute. But then I've been fighting all my life. So to me, that just meant, you pull yourself up, you get it together, and then you go in for the fight. And so with Sea Change, when people were saying to me right after the election, what are we gonna do? What's the strategy? What's the message? Well, heck, I didn't know what the message was or the strategy. But what I was very clear about is that we needed to start talking to voters now, because one of the mistakes I believe we have made historically is that we wait until 3 months before the election to start talking to people. And my big fear was he was so crazy that either people were gonna turn off and say, I'm not thinking about politics, I'm not listening, I don't wanna do anything anymore, or people were going to begin to accept his behavior and normalize the madness. And in order to prevent that, we need to be out on a weekly basis talking to voters, registering voters, and making sure that people know that there's a heck of a lot more going on. If you watch the news, you think the only thing that's happening is Russia. But there's a lot of destruction that is happening in each of these agencies where he appointed cabinet secretaries so they would go in and tear everything up, like the EPA or the DOJ. You just name it, alphabet soup. People need to know what is going on. And then more important than that, they need to know what to do about it. And so we all learned a civics lesson. We learned how significant it is to have one party control each branch of government. And so we learned that lesson, and we can never let that happen again. Let me just end on this. When I went to Congress, I happened to go when the Tea Party took over. So we won. There were 9 Democrats that won that year. We lost 65 seats that year in 2010, 2011. So when we are talking about a wave, and when we are talking about 23 seats, and that might seem like a lot, historically, when the House has changed, it's changed in large numbers. And so I feel because of organizations like WAVE, because of the resistance movement that we have seen all over this country, because of the level of activism, regardless of the Russians, regardless of voter suppression, regardless of gerrymandering, it takes mass grassroots involvement, and nothing can defeat that. Nothing can defeat that. So I just want to say to WAVE, Sea Change is going to continue in solidarity. We're going to come here every weekend that you need our help, because folks in LA are a little frustrated. Typically, LA folks would go to Nevada or Arizona, and I'm telling people, we don't need to do that anymore. You need to get in your car, because Orange County is about an hour away. We are going to turn Orange County blue. Thank you.